So now that we are done with the topic of citizenship, our next set of videos, so it's going to be a whole series of multiple videos that will be on the topic of fundamental rights. But before we do fundamental rights, we will do the theory of rights. This is what I've done for the previous videos also. For example, for citizenship, firstly we did the theory of citizenship from class 11th NCERT, because that is also in your syllabus, and in prelims they do ask the questions related to these conceptual questions. So firstly we'll understand about the theory of rights, then we'll move on to read about the fundamental rights from the next video onwards, which will be the content from the constitution and your standard books. So I hope you guys are ready for it. And as I just said, this is the content borrowed from your standard 11th NCERT of political science, which is named as political theory. So there is a chapter 5 on the topic of rights. The entire content kind of summarizes the content from that chapter. Now, firstly, when we start talking about this, the first thing that comes to our mind is that what are rights? That is pretty obvious. The first question it will come to your mind. So they say that rights are entitlement or justified claims. Now understand. Entitlement means that you are entitled. कहते हैं ना that you are entitled to something. So you should be given something. That something is right. Or justified claims, that you are making claims and that claims or those claims are justified. To elaborate more on these two terms, firstly, when we talk about entitlement, so entitlement as what? As citizens, you will get certain rights. As individuals, you will get certain rights, certain entitlements. As human beings, you will get certain entitlements or rights. Okay? So that could be possible. Then when you talk about justified claims, so primarily rights are those claims that represent those conditions that are collectively seen as a source of self-respect and dignity. Now see the pointer here. What it is telling, justified claims. So you are making certain claim that I should, for example, if you would have taken, let's say, the insurance claims. So you know that, when do you have to claim for that, health insurance ho ya fir any life insurance ho, accident ka ho, your vehicle insurance, right? So in that case, claims here in this case are those conditions which are collectively seen as a source. So conditions which are giving you the self-respect and dignity, and you are making those, that is why it is justified, that it is just, it is obvious to ask them. So for example, if you talk about when we are as a human being in the society, we get certain rights, for example, and we are expected to get certain rights. Right now I'm not using the word fundamental, please focus. The only term I'm using right now is right, which is in Hindi meaning adhikar. Okay, that is it, nothing else. So for example, rights like, if you talk about, let's say, livelihood हो गया, या फिर आप right to freedom of expression हो गया. There are many such things, education से related चीज़ें होंगी, which as an individual, as a human being, you're supposed to get in the society. And then the question is that why are they necessary? What are rights? तक तो ठीक है. Then also we need to understand that why are rights necessary, although the question itself gives you the answer. The first question also gives you the answer, like you can talk about self-respect, dignity, etc. And then belonging to human beings category, you are entitled to certain things. So it is very much important that these rights are necessary for our well-being, and they also help the individuals develop their talent and skills. So development of individuals' talents and skills. Now see, these are just the few pointers given in your book, but you understand that this list can be long and you can have any n number of pointers in this. So you can have your own list also and you can write the things there. So for example, in this case, let's say if we have the right to education, we can talk about these. ठीक है. Then we also say, जब हम बात करते हैं हमारे definition में of rights, ठीक है, we need to understand. For example, अगर हमने बोला that we have, let's say, the right to freedom, ठीक है, and I'll give you a chapter on freedom also when we'll do the fundamental rights related to freedom. So there is a chapter on liberty or freedom in NCERT, that also will do. There is a chapter on equality, that also will do. So here the point to understand is that let's say we are telling that we have the freedom to do anything. So we have to understand that in that case, we need to understand that let's say if we are taking any banned drug, ठीक है, so we have to consider that we cannot claim something like this as a right. Therefore, it is said that they are the justified claims, right? Kyunki if you are doing that, you are going against the law. So you do have the right to freedom, but that also doesn't mean that you will do something which is not allowed. It should be justified. And therefore, when you will do Article 19 of the Constitution, so that actually is about many of the rights related to several freedoms. ठीक है, जैसे freedom of speech expression, freedom of assembly, freedom of movement, etc. In that you will come across a term which is your reasonable restriction, that your freedom should not curtail somebody else's freedom, and therefore there are certain restrictions imposed on you, and they are the reasonable restrictions. They are not random abstract restrictions, they are the reasonable restrictions. So anyways, that is to be done later when we'll do the fundamental rights. Now the question, what are rights, why are they necessary, यहाँ तक तो ठीक है. Then the question is, ये rights आते कहाँ हैं, कहाँ से हैं? So where do the rights come from? When we try to see, इसको हम थोड़ा historically जा करके trace करने की कोशिश करेंगे. So if we talk about the 17th, 18th century political theorists, they say that rights were derived from natural law. What is this natural law? So you can say, something that by the virtue of being an individual, you anyway should get. ठीक है? So derived from natural law. And it was said that it was not something that was conferred by a ruler or a society, that something that a ruler or a society will give to you. No. Natural law would be something we are born with. So if we are a human being, we are supposed to get certain rights, and that comes under the natural law, not something that any Raja or any society or any such thing would provide us. Okay? So they are considered to be the inalienable rights, that you cannot alienate me from this right. Matlab, I have to get this. Okay? And which also means definitely that no one can take them away. ठीक है, obviously. अब बात करते हैं नेचुरल लॉ को या नेचुरल राइट्स को लेके. तो दिस वाज कंसिडर्ड दैट देयर आर 3 नेचुरल राइट्स ऑफ मैन. एक लाइफ, एक लिबर्टी. सी दीज थिंग्स कैन कम इन प्रीलिम्स. एंड अनदर इज प्रॉपर्टी. एंड दीज नेचुरल वर द बेसिक राइट्स. ठीक है, राइट टू लाइफ, राइट टू लिबर्टी एंड राइट टू प्रॉपर्टी, which are, and when we say natural, which means they are given by law of nature, right? So they are given to us by law of nature, and because they are the natural rights, all other rights, so these are just the 3 basic rights. So any other right, all other rights are derived from these basic rights. ठीक है, this was believed. So we have to understand कि if the state or the government, let's say, is trying to impose certain arbitrary power on us, it is not allowed, and therefore these rights are given to safeguard the individual freedom, because we can claim that these are the natural rights. So there is no person or no authority to give that to us. We are getting this because we are eligible to this. ठीक है. Presently, अब हम अगर अभी की बात करें, द आइडिया ऑफ ह्यूमन राइट्स माना जाता है जिस केस में ये जो नेचुरल लॉ है इसको बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं मानते हैं, काइंड ऑफ अनएक्सेप्टेबल। और यहाँ जो आइडिया ऑफ ह्यूमन राइट्स है, दिस गारंटी दैट ह्यूमन बींग्स themselves seek or arrive at certain order to lead a minimally good life, because the idea is that all human beings are equally valuable, and therefore we have the concept of prevalent concept of, we would say rather, human right, जहाँ पे काइंड ऑफ नेचुरल लॉ को बहुत ज़्यादा बिलीव नहीं किया जाता. देर आर सर्टेन सोसाइटीज़ जहाँ पे कि इसको भी क्लेम किया जाता है, या देर आर सर्टेन थ्योरीज इन विच दिस इज टॉक्ड अबाउट. ऐसा नहीं है. बट ह्यूमन राइट्स के केस में दिस आइडिया इज डिनाइड एंड इट इज सेड दैट ऑल ह्यूमन बींग्स आर इक्वली वैल्यूएबल एंड दे ऑल आर यूनिक. ठीक है. एंड नो वन is born to serve another, and therefore the idea or the concept of human right becomes very, very important. So when we talk about, let's say, the idea of a free and equal self, because everybody seems to be equal in this case, and therefore it challenges the existing inequality. So let's say we are having a society wherein we are seeing those discriminations or inequality on the basis of race, caste, religion, gender, whatever. So it should definitely be denied, because we are considering the idea of free and equal self. And therefore in this case there is something very significant on which prelims में भी question आया हुआ है. So you should prepare this in greater detail. That is what UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights. ठीक है. So UN का UDHR you should prepare in detail. इसमें prelims में questions आए हुए हैं. And it roughly tries to attempt to recognize these justified claims of the individual, and the world community should see them very, very important, because these are very relevant to live a life of dignity and the self-respect. जब हम बात करते हैं यूनिवर्सल ह्यूमन राइट्स की, ये भी बहुत ज़रूरी वही है. सेम कॉन्सेप्ट गोज अहेड, क्योंकि जो भी ओप्रेस्ड लोग हैं, द ओप्रेस्ड पीपल ऑल ओवर द वर्ल्ड, दे आर एबल टू चैलेंज द लॉज if they are facing any discrimination because of any law, and they are being denied any equal opportunity or right, they can challenge these laws on the basis of this idea of universal human rights only. ठीक है. So helps the oppressed people challenge the laws which are discriminatory in nature. ठीक है. ये चीज़ आपको ध्यान रखनी है. अब जैसे कि एग्जाम्पल यू टॉक अबाउट, लेट्स से, स्लेवरी. तो बहुत सारे कंट्री में स्लेवरी अबॉलिश हुआ, उस चीज़ को क्वेश्चन किया गया, उसको लोगों ने मानना बंद कर दिया, उनको चैलेंज करा. ठीक है. एंड ऑफ कोर्स देयर वाज स्ट्रगल, लिमिटेड सक्सेस रहा, ऑल ऑफ दैट प्रॉब्लम्स वर देयर. बट उसके अबॉलिश होने की वजह ये है दैट पीपल अंडरस्टूड अबाउट दिस यूनिवर्सल ह्यूमन राइट कॉन्सेप्ट, एंड दैट नोबडी इज बॉर्न एज स्लेव टू अनदर, नोबडी इज बॉर्न टू सर्व अनदर person, and therefore this concept should not exist, and if there should be a law to abolish something like this which is very, very discriminatory in nature. ठीक है. Also society में नए challenges, threats आते रहते हैं. So when human rights are there, it becomes easier for people to adjust with that, and they come up with several rights like environment हो गया, लाइवलीहुड का हो गया, ठीक है, शेल्टर का हो गया. अलग अलग जगह अलग अलग तरीके से राइट्स को देखा जाता है. एक और एस्पेक्ट हमें राइट्स का देखना है, दैट इज अबाउट द लीगल राइट्स एंड द स्टेट. व्हेन यू टॉक अबाउट दिस कॉन्सेप्ट, लीगल राइट्स या लीगल रिकग्निशन ऑफ राइट्स, तो नाउ व्हाई इज दिस इम्पोर्टेंट? क्योंकि अगर आप बात करते हो द डिग्री ऑफ success of appeal of human rights की. So if somebody is appealing for the human rights, how much success is it possible for them? To what degree are they able to be succeeded when they are appealing for human rights? ये क्या होता है ना, that depends on multiple factors, and one of the factors is the support of government and laws, and therefore this legal recognition of rights and legal backing of rights is very important. अब natural law में क्या है? For example, why is this idea not much acceptable? Because you are telling that we are like, born with these rights. So if somebody doesn't, like, if you're not getting these rights, let's say, not somebody giving, but if you're not getting it, where do you go and question? To whom will you question? किससे बात करोगे? So if you have a legal backing of any right, you can go to the authorities to ask that I am eligible for this right, but I'm not getting this right. And you will have certain mechanism to at least get those rights. Therefore, the legal backing becomes very important. तो like for example US से ये सारी चीज़ें जो हैं वो शुरू हुई. So US में like we have the fundamental rights which is also borrowed from this concept only. So they have a bill of rights. ठीक है? So a set of rights is what they have, and it is given in their constitution. So we have to understand that the constitution, as it represents the highest law of the land, and for any democratic country this is very important. So the constitution represents the highest law of the land, and constitutional recognition of certain rights is very important. तो एक तो हो गया कि जब law आपके right को recognize कर रहा है तो legal right हो गया. And let's say if the constitution recognizes certain rights, आपको backing वहाँ से मिल रही है, which is the highest law of land, then you can say कि हम वैसे rights को fundamental rights बोल सकते हैं. ठीक है? अभी इंडियन कॉन्टेक्स्ट में विल डू इट लेटर, बट जस्ट एज अ ब्रीफ अंडरस्टैंडिंग. तो डेफिनेटली राइट्स में भी चीज़ें इतनी आसानी से सब जगह सबको नहीं मिलती है. सब ने अपनी एक लड़ाई लड़ी है पास्ट में टू गेट दोज राइट्स विच दे आर एलिजिबल फॉर. ठीक है? एंड ऑल्सो most of the cases में क्या होता है, the rights which are given to the people, they are those claims which are directed towards the state. ठीक है? This will do as a feature when we do the fundamental rights. So we have a feature of fundamental right, that they are the limitations on the legislature and the executive, and we have to understand that they are directed towards the state, in the sense that state cannot take away your rights. ठीक है? And people can put demands upon the state that this is something that we are eligible for. For example, education से related कुछ हो गया, environment से related कुछ हो गया, health से related कुछ हो गया. So people can ask these things from the state, and when I say state here, we mean the nation state. I hope now you already have a clear-cut idea of this because I've dealt it in the previous videos. Also, because these rights are there, they will place obligation upon the state. What context? Obligation. This is very important. They will place obligations upon the state because the states are then expected to act in a certain way, providing these rights to people for their dignity, for their good quality of life, for their liberty, etc. ठीक है? So the states are trying to, or the state's authority are trying to exercise these rights without violating the sanctity of the individual life and liberty. And what ensures that this happens? The rights ensures that this happens. So state definitely is sovereign, but it has to stay there for the people, and the people should get the rights. Another section would be on the kinds of rights. When we talk about the kinds of rights, for example, on one hand we have the political rights. ठीक है? अब जैसे for example, what could be certain examples of the political rights? For example, you have equality before law, that law के सामने जो है equal होने चाहिए सबको. उसका detail हम fundamental rights में करेंगे, but just understand right now. Political process में आपको participation मिलना चाहिए, है ना? वोट करना या फिर इलेक्शन में कंटेस्ट होने का, तो वोटिंग का हो गया, या फिर कंटेस्ट इलेक्शन हो गया, फॉर्म पॉलिटिकल पार्टी हो गया, एट्सेट्रा, जॉइन पॉलिटिकल पार्टी हो गया, एट्सेट्रा. ठीक है? तो ये कुछ पॉलिटिकल राइट्स हो गए. उसके अलावा एक और चीज़ है, जैसे आप बोल सकते हो सिविल राइट्स, जो एक नागरिक होने के नाते आपको एक सिविलाइजेशन में आपको मिलनी चाहिए. फॉर एग्जांपल, फ्री फेयर ट्रायल, कि कोई मुकदमा चल रहा है तो वो सही से उसकी अधिकार. ठीक है? उसके अलावा आप बोल सकते हो फ्रीडम ऑफ एक्सप्रेशन, जिसको जैसे हम बोलते हैं राइट ऑफ फ्रीडम ऑफ एक्सप्रेशन, ठीक है। प्रोटेस्ट का हो गया, दैट आई एम नॉट अग्रीइंग विथ समथिंग, तो आई वांट टू एक्सप्रेस माय डिसेंट. Definitely you understand that this will not mean that you will start destroying the public property and harming somebody else. No, if you're not okay with something you can go for the protest, but डिसेंट आप सिर्फ दिखाओगे एक जेन्युइन तरीके से. सो बट लोग इसको गलत इंटरप्रेट कर लेते हैं, दे डू वट एवर दे वॉन्ट टू, दैट इज़ अ डिफरेंट थिंग. बट राइट में आपको एक बहुत ही जेन्युइन तरीके से राइट मिलेगा, एंड दे बोथ फॉर्म द बेसिस ऑफ अ डेमोक्रेटिक सिस्टम, because it becomes very important in a democracy to get these rights for the people. And in additionally to these rights we also have, let's say, economic rights पे अगर हम बात करें, ठीक है, जहाँ पे मान लीजिए हमने बात करा इक्वल पे फॉर इक्वल वर्क का, कि फॉर मेन एंड वेमेन द वर्क दैट दे आर डूइंग, अगर सेम वर्क है तो इक्वल पेमेंट मिलना चाहिए, ठीक है. इफ़ दे आर डूइंग एक्स्ट्रा वर्क दे शुड गेट एक्स्ट्रा पेमेंट, समथिंग लाइक दैट. ऑल ऑफ दोज आर विद इन द आइडिया ब्रॉडर डोमेन ऑफ इकोनॉमिक राइट्स. तो इन सब चीज़ों को ध्यान में रख के हमें देखना है कि सिटीजन्स को जो रिक्वायर्ड राइट्स हैं वो मिल रहे हैं. इकोनॉमिक राइट्स हो गया, कुछ कल्चरल एस्पेक्ट को भी ध्यान रखे, जैसे कि आपका एजुकेशन वगैरह हो गया वो आपको दिया जाता है, लैंग्वेज प्रिजर्वेशन का हो गया वो सब आपको दिया जाता है, ठीक है. सो यू विल हैव सर्टेन बेसिक राइट्स विच आर योर प्रायोरिटी. जैसा आपसे पहले भी बात करी थी, व्हाट आर दोज बेसिक राइट्स विच आर अंडर दिस प्रायोरिटी, जो कि ऐसे तो नेचुरल में समझा जाता था बट अभी भी दिस इज़ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. लाइफ, लिबर्टी हो गया, प्रॉपर्टी हो गया, इक्वल ट्रीटमेंट हो गया, पॉलिटिकल पार्टिसिपेशन हो गया. दीज आर सर्टेन बेसिक राइट्स एंड डेफिनेटली दीज आर द जस्टिफाइड क्लेम्स, ठीक है. एंड देयरफॉर दे आर वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट to live a decent life. Now you must have come across a phrase with, or a quote, with great power comes great responsibility. So if you are getting great powers, you are also getting responsibility. Similarly goes the concept of rights and responsibility. So जैसे rights and duties बोलते हैं ना, तो kind of that you can think. और टेक्निकली हम तो जब बात करेंगे जब हम कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन पे आएंगे, बट अभी के लिए थ्योरी में आप समझो कि इफ़ यू आर गेटिंग द राइट्स यू आर ऑल्सो रिस्पॉन्सिबल टुवर्ड समथिंग. सो राइट्स आर ऑब्लिगेशंस ऑन द स्टेट, ठीक है, जो हमने देखा कि स्टेट्स को अपने सिटीजन्स को और कुछ बाहर के लोगों को भी, तो जैसे फंडामेंटल राइट्स हमारे केस में सिटीजन्स नॉन सिटीजन्स दोनों को दिया जाता है. दे हैव अ कैटेगरी फॉर दैट विल डू लेटर, बट दे आर द ऑब्लिगेशंस ऑन द स्टेट. But responsibilities are the obligations on the citizens. So we have certain obligations on us also. जैसे कि if we are taking care of our personal need, that is okay, but does not mean that we harm others, है ना, or we take others' interest or harm others' interests. ये हम नहीं कर सकते हैं, ठीक है. सो what we have to focus on is the common good. कि अगर मेरे पास कोई फ्रीडम है, मेरे पास कोई अधिकार है, that shouldn't harm somebody else also. So that is very very important to be considered. Then we need to respect others' right, because if we'll respect others' right, others will also respect our rights. Then only a harmonious society can exist. Otherwise chaos, fighting, etc. will continue. Then we have to balance our rights when they come into conflict, ठीक है. अगर किसी भी तरीके का कॉन्फ्लिक्ट होता है, लेट्स से राइट टू प्रिवेसी है, तो लेट्स से यू कैन नॉट क्लिक somebody's picture because if you say that I have a freedom, ठीक है, but if you are doing that is harming somebody else's right to privacy, ठीक है. तो this you have to consider that you have to balance out the right if they are coming in conflict with somebody else's right. So balancing of rights become very important. Then also vigilance is very important. So as a citizen you need to be vigilant about whatever limitations you are placing upon the rights or the limitations that are present on your rights, let's say. तो अगर जैसे आप बात करते हैं कि let's say somebody is arrested, we have a concept of preventive detention also. मतलब कि अगर लगे कि किसी से खतरा है तो एज अ प्रिवेंटिव मेजर हम उसको पहले ही डिटेन कर सकते हैं, अरेस्ट कर सकते हैं. So we'll see the detailed provisions later. But if you're arresting somebody and you seem that person might be a threat to the society, but you at the same time, you also, because you are just assuming that, so you have to take care of the legal counsel for that person, or let's say the legal right that person should also get. ठीक है, तो वो भी आपको ध्यान रखना है. So as अगर हम बात करें overall, these are the broader dimensions that we could have covered under the topic of right, and we have to remember that rights are not something which are absolute कि एक बार मिल गया तो बस मिल ही गया. They always will have certain backings behind. ठीक है, we have to be vigilant that we are protecting our right also, we are protecting others' right also, because when this happens, then only a democratic society, a harmonious society will be able to work properly. ठीक है, so I hope you are now clear with the theory of rights. I've given you enough understanding on this topic. From the next video, we'll continue discussing about the rights in the Indian Constitution, and we'll see the types of rights. So thank you so much, guys. Take care till then. See you in the next video. Bye bye.